There's a song in Christian circles that kind of goes like this. It goes, "I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God." And I want to tell you what it's like to actually be an individual who ran from different forms of slavery, and what it actually looked like. First, like when I was a kid, I saw things happen in my home that I knew weren't right, and I basically was a voice of dissent. I was a rebel, and I didn't agree with what was happening. Nobody listened, and I said, "Screw this, I'm out," and I ran. I ran to San Diego. I was like, "Let me get the hell out of here." And that's from Sacramento. My friends in Sacramento, nobody really knew what was happening. Some of my friends knew what was going on, but a lot of my friends didn't know. They just thought I was this happy-go-lucky dude, but they didn't understand why in a flip and a switch, I would turn into somebody completely different with anger, because I had all this anger pent up. I ran, and I said, "Screw the system." I was a part of a church system, 2 church systems that were, they were complete slavery. It was ridiculous. And whether or not people agree with me on that, who are still part of the system, that's your opinion, and I respect that. But I know what I was. I know how I was worked. I know the way that I was used. I know how I was prodded, poked. I know how the whole thing went down, because I was just a tool. And that's how I was treated as such. Until I stood up for myself. And until I stood up for myself. And people didn't know what I was going through. But it would show up in some of the leadership meetings. It would show up in the way people, and there was one point where the volunteers that I was serving with were like, "Wait, why is David doing this, but they're doing this over here?" So there was a complete contrast. They had no clue. They didn't know what was going on. They could just see, slight evidences of it. And when I left the system, I was told not to communicate with people who were still a part of the system. I was told that I was a bad Christian if I talked, whatever. It's like I'm actually the bearer of some pretty big secrets because of that. So I'm a slave right now. I won't be soon here. I'm a slave right now to some secrets. Because they were projected onto me. I won't be a slave. I'm not gonna be a slave to that anymore. These people can kiss my ass about that stuff. But it is what it is, and I know that. And I've had to fight my way out of that from the way I was treated and stuff. So did other people as well. Then there was a system that I was a part of politically and socially. And the part of it was I didn't know that I was even a part of a system that was advocating for my own mental slavery. Psychological slavery, economic slavery. I didn't know that was a part of it until I woke up and my eyes were open and I said, "Wait a minute, like, what's going on?" And this is how I know that I was in a slave system, because slave words were used against me. I was an Uncle Tom nigger. I was a nigger, get back in your freaking get back in your place. Uncle Tom, nigger over here, you need to get over here. You're nothing but a white this and that. Not realizing that people who I cared about were actually slave drivers. I didn't know that, but that's what it turned out to be. I was like, and believe me, like I dropped some kind of. I just want to digress real quick, hop off the topic. Understanding that I drop some real heavy stuff sometimes just because I'm thinking through some heavy stuff and I'm processing it in my head. And I'm moving centered, which is why this is so much easier for me to do this while I'm doing something else. So, and I get how it can be kind of hard to listen to sometimes, and I totally get it. But there's points where people are vibing with what I'm saying because they don't understand what it is that they're a part of either. And so I'm basically kind of opening their eyes up to this stuff. So let me get back on the point. So I was part of this system, and I was called all types of things, and then threatened, and then individuals want to tell me and control me about what I say, what I don't say, how I communicate, that I should be, only doing what they want me to do. It's like, you're a slave driver in this system, and you want me to be a slave with you, and I don't want to be a slave. See, I've been a rebel since I was a kid, and I can tell when stuff isn't right, and it's a hard thing to keep me quiet on this stuff, especially when especially when I see people, they use the system against people. So what I look like right now, and what some people would kind of understand, is that when you're a runaway slave, what you are is you're an enemy. And that's really where the basis of satanic power comes from. It's keeping people a slave to things that they don't even know that they're a slave to. So you're a slave to a family system or a family dynamic, which is abusive. You're a slave to a church system that pushes and drives people to ends that they're not even supposed to be going to, when they're not even being. They're just doing and doing and doing, and then hiding stuff. Or you're a slave to a political system that not only gets off on using people at the right times of the year, but also has individuals within the system that look like me that actually drive the system themselves, because they get money off of it. But spiritually, the slave system is so much deeper, because the spiritual part of it, the spiritual aspect of it, it ties into all the stuff, all the other stuff, political, social, religious, all that stuff. Spiritually, if you're a slave and you don't know it, it's easy to be a slave to anti-religiousness, anti-Christianity, anti-whatever, anti-freedom, while proclaiming to be the most free. But you don't know that unless you are brave enough to say no to the system. And so, to be able to say no, to put down the tools of the warfare for the slave system, and to open up the biggest tool that you have, which is your mind. The second biggest tool is your mouth. It's like, that's a scary place to be, and I get it. But being a runaway means that I'm taking the punches for people who want to run away as well, but haven't found the courage or the time or even the motive yet to do so. And my hope is that even when I'm like driving the points forward, that I see that people that notice the systems that are of slavery, that they would say, okay, I'm willing to listen. I'm not willing to take the steps yet. I'm not willing to do that, but I'm willing to listen. That's better than just rejecting it and negating like whole experiences of people. I can tell you my whole experience of being in a family dynamic that was abusive. I can tell you about experience of being in a church setting that was abusive. I can tell you about being a part of a political system that turned completely abusive. I can tell you about those things. Those are my experiences. It's what happened. And I can tell you like my own personal slave narrative, and knowing what it looks like to be an individual that runs away from that stuff and then tries to set other people free by speaking the truth. That's really what my goal has always been, is just to speak the truth. That's why I spoke out about the social justice narratives and stuff like that, because it's a slave movement. It's a slave movement that's meant to get slaves, meant to put slaves into an emotional state of anger, to help push the system that keeps people enslaved. Terrible cycle. So what my goal is, and again, it's never about trying to change people politically. It's never about that. It's just, are you willing to open your eyes up to what maybe the truth is about what's really taking place in the world, and how you and I are being used psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, and all the like, especially monetarily. Are you willing to recognize that you might be a slave right now without even knowing it? And see, like, the thing is that what you may not realize is that you're going to be a slave to something. You'll be a slave to your own intellect. You'll be a slave to your own money, your own, I don't know, drives, whatever. You can be a slave to all types of things. Sex. I mean, there's women out there and men out there who want to enslave other women and other men. There's men out there who want to enslave women, and there's women out there that want to enslave men. Like, for example, like, there's women out there that will enslave a man via sex. There's men out there who will enslave women via narcissism. But people don't know it, and they're scared to call it what it is. But to be wise about it means that you have boundaries. So my hope is this, okay? As I'm saying this to you, and I'm whether or not I'm hitting you where this like connects with you intellectually, emotionally, psychologically, I'm hoping that one day you'll go back and just say, okay, I get it now. And there's no shame in the game at all. And whether or not you get inspired about it, I mean, that's your choice. But my hope and my desire is that when you see that there's systems out there that are enslaving you to something, that you're willing to take a stand and actually speak up for yourself, speak up for your family, speak up for your loved ones, and then you take the punches and the hits. Because there's people out there who are willing to do it for you right now. But there will be a point in time where they strip our voices away. It's just a matter of time. And then, whether or not you're a slave in a new system, you get to make the choice about what you understand, and you get to make the choice about what you agree with. I'm hoping that you understand what I'm saying. Because there'll be a point where, whether or not you agree with me, I know what the end result's going